Your roadmap to the latest in auto. Welcome to Highway Herald, where we don't just talk torque, we break down global moves that impact everything from trade routes to production lines. And today, the conversation hits close to home. Canada and the US, two nations once driven in tandem, are now barreling toward a high-stakes collision. Following Trump's 2024 re-election, relations across the 49th parallel didn't just cool, they combusted. What started as offhand tariff talk now feels like a full-throttle trade war, loaded with nationalism, geopolitical jabs, and a patriotic roar echoing through Canada like a big block V8. Here's how this diplomatic pileup unfolded. Trump's statehood crack turns into a political engine misfire. It began like so many Trump stories do, with a comment dismissed as bluster until it wasn't. In December 2024, Trump casually suggested that Canada could bypass US tariffs if it just became America's 51st state. At a Mar-a-Lago meeting with then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the line drew nervous laughs, but it quickly revved into something more serious. Fuel was poured on the fire when Trump took to Truth Social, posting photoshopped images of Wayne Gretzky draped in the Stars and Stripes, joking about economic annexation. But by early 2025, the mood shifted. Trump stopped joking and started jawing about economic force and rethinking the century-old US-Canada border treaty. In private, things accelerated. Reports suggest Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick warned Canadian officials that trade pacts could be tossed like expired oil filters. Whispers from Trump's inner circle suggested everything from redrawing borders to ejecting Canada from NORAD and Five Eyes. Ottawa no longer saw this as political theater. It was a campaign to torque the very framework of North American stability. But that was just the ignition. What followed was an economic showdown with real-world consequences. Tariffs and turbulence, when trade became a street brawl. February 1st, 2025, marked the ignition point. Trump officially slapped a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, citing national security. His claims? That Canada wasn't pulling its weight in stopping drug smuggling and illegal immigration, though the numbers clearly tell a different story, with most fentanyl crossings tied to the southern border, not the north. Canada floored the gas on retaliation. Tariffs dropped like lug nuts on US products, booze, dairy, apparel, and beyond. Provinces like Quebec and BC threw in added friction with inspections, blocked contracts, and import restrictions on US goods. The fallout was immediate and loud. Windsor, Ontario, a hub in the US-Canada auto supply chain, felt the heat, haunted by flashbacks of the 2022 Ambassador Bridge blockade. On the US side, everything from bourbon to washing machines took a hit. And tourism? Skidding hard. Buy Canadian? Surged as a rallying cry from coast to coast. The data backed the sentiment. 91% of Canadians wanted less trade with the US, while negative views of America soared to an all-time high. Yet in the midst of tariffs and tension, something unexpected happened. Canada found unity in defiance. Before we rev up the next segment, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Your support drives us to bring more high-octane content to auto enthusiasts like you. Now let's crank up the power and dive into our next point. Maple leaf muscle, Canada fires back with national unity. If Trump thought he could wedge Canada apart, he got the opposite. Enter Mark Carney, Canada's newly appointed Prime Minister, following Trudeau's exit. Carney wasn't subtle. He called it the most serious crisis of our generation, and acted fast. The Canadian government began re-evaluating US military deals, particularly the $19 billion F-35 fighter jet procurement. Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP wanted to pull the plug entirely, citing national security and accusing Trump of acting like a fascist. Singh even demanded a ban on Trump's attendance at the G7 summit, scheduled to be held in Alberta. Meanwhile, provinces roared into action. Manitoba, Quebec, and Nova Scotia urged their public institutions to ditch US contracts. Hashtags like #FabricOfQuebec and #BoycottUSA trended as Canadian nationalism surged like a boosted inline six. Culturally, the transformation was unmistakable. Booing the US national anthem at events became a regular thing. Flags were everywhere, on porches, in shop windows, even draped over hockey gear. Canadian pride, once quietly confident, was now loud and in your face. But with the US engine sputtering, Canada didn't just rally inward, it looked outward for new partners and opportunities. Canada shifts gears toward global alliances. Faced with mounting pressure from Washington, Canada did what any driver would do when the road ahead turns hostile. It changed lanes. Trade Minister Mary Ang went full throttle on global outreach, making strategic stops in Brussels and Singapore to rev up trade talks and loosen Canada's dependence on the US market. The goal? Slash exports to the US by half by the end of 2025. And it's not just talk. Since the 2017 launch of the CETA agreement, trade with the EU has already accelerated by 65%. Now, Canada is tuning up deeper access to European markets, especially for small and medium-sized businesses and critical mineral exports. Meanwhile, energy discussions focused on sending Canadian oil and gas to Europe as a cleaner, stabler alternative to Russian supplies. Down south, relations with Mexico have also warmed. The two NAFTA partners are now exploring how to build a more balanced, cooperative North American trade bloc, one less reliant on Uncle Sam and more in tune with mutual respect. Even Canada's defense alliances are under the microscope. While a full break from US-led pacts like NORAD isn't on the table yet, military experts say the tone is shifting. From procurement of European defense tech to rethinking security doctrines, Canada is clearly no longer treating the US as the go-to co-pilot. And now, all eyes are on the road ahead, specifically the ballot box. Election Day Showdown, Canada's defining drive. April 28th could be the most pivotal date on Canada's political calendar in decades. The federal election isn't just about taxes or healthcare, it's about the soul of the nation. Prime Minister Mark Carney is campaigning as the steady hand during a geopolitical storm, framing himself as the only one ready to guard Canada from foreign interference. His rallying cry? They want our land, our water, our minerals, but they can't have them. Carney's scrapped the carbon tax and hit pause on a capital gains hike, moves aimed at easing pressure on working Canadians. And when it comes to Trump, Carney has drawn a red line. No negotiations until the 51st state rhetoric disappears. On the other side of the pit lane, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is steering carefully. While he calls Trump's annexation remarks unacceptable, he's keeping his headlights focused on domestic issues: housing, affordability, deregulation. Poilievre backs retaliation against US tariffs, but prefers a strategic, less combative lane. His populist vibes echo Trump in style, but his stance is clear: Canada will never be absorbed. Then there's Jagmeet Singh of the NDP, bringing fire and fury. From calling to ban Trump from the G7 to pushing for a block on critical mineral exports, Singh isn't holding back. His blunt retort, "Cut the crap, Donald. No Canadian wants to join you," lit up headlines and social feeds. Polls suggest Canadians are lining up behind leaders who won't fold under pressure. The Abacus poll shows anti-Trump voters leaning toward the Liberals, while the Conservatives hold a slight lead overall. But one takeaway is undeniable. Trump has become a wedge, not between parties, but between nations. Final verdict: Canada holds the line. What started as a flippant joke about tariffs and statehood became a rallying cry. Instead of submission, Trump's pressure campaign turbocharged Canadian pride and rewired the national conversation. For the first time in modern memory, the US isn't being seen as a partner, but as a threat. Carney, Singh, and Poilievre might not see eye to eye on everything, but they all agree: Canada's sovereignty is non-negotiable. And the April 28th election? It won't just decide policy, it'll decide whether Canada stays the course or rewrites its geopolitical playbook. We want to hear from you. Do you think Canada should cut more trade ties with the US? Is the pivot to Europe and Asia a smart long-term move? Which leader do you think has the clearest vision for Canada's sovereignty? Can Canada truly stand on its own without US economic cooperation? Or is a repaired relationship with the US still possible down the road? Let us know your thoughts and stories in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. Thanks for riding along with Highway Herald. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next vehicle update or auto geopolitical twist. And if you're curious for more, check out the videos on screen now. There's plenty more high-octane insight waiting for you.